some family. Good to see all of you. Well, as Reverend Martha said, I'm Tammy Lambert, and I'm a ministerial intern, which means I have miles to go before we sleep. It'll be a while, so we'll be spending this time together for some time. We're going to be talking today about gifts and gratitude. And the purpose is to remind ourselves that we are beings of infinite power and that we are one with the source, which means that every need we could possibly have is met. I want to tell you a story. Annette found this story about 3 sons who left home and they went out on their own and they prospered. And so each of them wanted to buy their elderly mother a gift. So the first son, he buys his mom, he has a home built for her. And the second son, he buys her a Mercedes with a driver. And the third son says, oh, well, I can top all of that. So he goes to a monastery and he gets this parrot that can read the Bible and can recite it. All she has to tell him is the chapter and verse, and the parrot will recite the Bible on cue. And it took 12 years for these monks to train this parrot to be able to do this. And he had to pledge $100,000 a year to the monastery in exchange. So he's sure his gift trumped everyone else. So surely thereafter, the mom writes a letter of thanks. She tells the first son, Milton, the house is too big, and I only live in one house, but I have to clean the whole house. And to the second son, she says, Marvin, I'm too old to travel, I stay home all the time, and I never use the Mercedes, plus the driver is rude. And to the third son, she says, dearest Melvin, you were the only son to have the good sense to know what your mother likes. The chicken was delicious. And you know, in this holiday season, many of us are thinking about holiday shopping. You know, we're thinking about what gifts to get for whom, and who are we going to see, and what parties are we going to go to. And, you know, we're going to plan on spending time together and spending time with our favorite family and friends and cooking our favorite dishes. And for many of us, though, we think of gifts in terms of separation. We think of gifts in terms of, I give to you. You know, I, Tammy, give to you, Annette, this Christmas present. We think of them as being 2 separate entities and 2 separate people, point A to point B. And in this holiday season, the impact of being separated from your finances is very real. There is a study by the American Research Group that shows that shoppers plan to spend an average of $929 this year. That's the average spending anticipated this year. But if you're an early shopper, you know, you're smart early shoppers, it's closer to almost $1,200. So if you shop early, you spend more. So if you're one of those people that plan ahead, you're probably spending a little more. There's emotional impact in giving. As we are trying to decipher, if I give this gift to this person, is it going to have an emotional impact? Are they going to like it? Are they going to not like it? Are they going to tell me they, you know, I have someone that I've given gifts to, and she'll make a point of telling me she returned it and what she returned it for. That kind of thing, where you're looking at the emotional impact of what is the impact on me of giving. The holiday season also brings up memories of past times that we may have had with family and with friends, with loved ones who may not be with us now. So sometimes that comes up. And there's even some of us in our old age who still want something for Christmas. You know, I still want this and that. And I'm classic for giving Annette a detailed list of what I want for Christmas. And then I'm always surprised when every year she gets everything on the list. So I think I'm putting things too small in that list. And what we're reading in our groups on Wednesday night is The Art of Spiritual Living by Joel Goldsmith, and we're on chapter 9. And in that chapter, Joel Goldsmith reminds us that we are one with the divine source. And he reminds us that all we ever need is inside of us. That the Spirit of God lives within us as an entity, as a being, as our infinite spirit. And so when we realize that we are connected with this infinite spirit, that there is no need to go begging on the outside of us for something, then we know that we have within us the kingdom of heaven already. That the source of power, the source of our spirit, is already within us. And so as we're talking tonight about gift and giving, I want us to focus our awareness and our realization of God on the fact that that God lives inside of us as spirit, that it's inextricably a part of us. And when we think about who God is and what God is, we know that God is infinite, that there's no beginning and there's no end, that there's no time period in which God exists. There's no separation of what God is from us. So when we know that everything is funded and sourced by the infinite, there are a number of conversations that start to disappear. Joel Goldsmith even says that knowing that all source is within us, that the idea of desiring something is actually missing the mark. He actually goes so far as to call it sinning. Here in religious science, we don't call it sinning, we call it missing the mark. How is that? Because the idea is that when we see something outside of us and we want that, we have it that we don't have it. If I see somebody having a beautiful family and I go, I want that, right? What that is it's a clue for us to start looking at, do I have that within me? Well, if everything that God is inside of me, then everything I see out there is inside of me. So when I know that if I see someone having that wonderful relationship, or having that beautiful career, or having a talent that expresses itself in a really remarkable, unique way, if I'm looking at and I'm seeing jealousy, then what I'm saying is that the God inside of me isn't good enough to give me that. And we know that's absolutely false. Because if we can set our desire on a high intention, then it is within us to have it. If we can set our desire on beauty and love and harmony and joy, and we can be in a space where we're like, wow, that's beautiful, then because we are attracted to it, we know that that is within us. Because we are infinite as well, we know that that is ours. All we have to do is accept and allow that beauty within us to unfold within us like a flower, to just explode and blossom, because that's really the beauty of having an understanding of the realization of God in us. Because my telling you this doesn't make it so for you. Our experience of the infinite power, of infinite source, of infinite abundance is contingent on our realization of this divine energy. It's not enough to know it in our head. It's not enough to believe it. What is important for us is to experience it on a profound, deep level. When we experience this realization of the divine, knowing there is no such thing as lack, we start to see a number of things in our life start to disappear. I'm going to kind of laugh at myself because one of the things that Joel Goldsmith talks about is hoarding. He talks about how some people will hoard food in a freezer and hoping that, if there's ever a rainy day, that they'll have that food. I had to admit that I was doing that. In the past, I had stories about growing up in South Los Angeles in a single-parent home and being kind of a latchkey kid, being about 6 years old, maybe 5 or 6, and there being no food in the house. And I had done everything creatively that I could. I mean, I was kind of creative, and I had a little brother that I felt responsible for feeding. So I went next door because I could hear there was a lady next door. She was Filipino, and she would make this dish with rice that was covered in seaweed. Oh, that was good, right? So I could smell her. I was hungry, and I knew my brother was hungry. I could smell it wafting from next door. So I go next door, and I'm all, can we have some, right? So she's like, of course. And she's like, are you hungry? I'm like, yeah, can I bring my brother? So she feeds us, of course, royally, right? Oh, was I in trouble when my mom got home. Like, you have the neighbors thinking we're starving you, right? But I had this story about lack. And later when I was in college, I would get like my financial aid at the beginning of the semester, and then I would buy my food for the semester, and it would have to last until the next time we had financial aid. So when I lived alone, that was great, and I was really good at hoarding, beans and canned goods and rice, and I just had this whole story on how to survive poverty. But there was one summer when I lived in the dorms, and I didn't have groceries or anywhere to put them, and my financial aid got caught up. And my roommate and I spent the whole summer on $6. And we ate all summer on $6. Let me tell you, we got really creative. We found out all about like how to go to art openings, and they would have food, and we would go to happy hour and grub out and get water. I mean, we got really creative on how to feed ourselves. So I had this story about there might not be food, right? So I would hoard food. And at one point, Annette and I were going through the pantry, and there was all this expired food, like rancid beans and old rice and, stuff that, like a dented can. It was probably salmonella season. It was just ugly, right? So, and she had a hard time getting me to throw the food out. And I had to acknowledge that that was a story about lack. And so I thought I was over that. I was like, oh, okay, I'm in the infinite source. I don't hoard food anymore. Like, my pantry is like pristine. And then this week, for those of you who don't know, I've lost 120 pounds. I've gone from like a size 26 to I think this is like a 4 or 6, right? So I have a lot of clothes that no longer fit. So I tasked my daughter with cleaning out my closet this week. I will pay you to clean out my closet. So the room was piled up with all these clothes, and she's like, these are your 12s, these are your 14s, these are your 10s, right? And I'm like, she's like, go through them. And I'm going through it, and I'm having a hard time letting go. I'm like, do you know what I paid for this? And I realized that I gave up hoarding food, but now I hoard clothes, right? So I'm like looking at this very sparse closet of clothes that now fit me. And I even realized that I had a plan. If it ever goes bad, I can take my sewing machine and tailor them down so they fit. I can use that material and I can make it all work. But but the story, the beginning of this story starts with if things ever go really wrong. So there's a quote by Joel Goldsmith. He says, once I know that I and the Father are one, not two, that God is infinite intelligence and therefore must know my needs, that God is divine love and it is his good pleasure to give me the kingdom, it is as if I had an eternal deep freezer and an infinite one. And I'm like, I'm ready to tap into that eternal deep freezer. Because the whole idea of saving for a rainy day, and I'm not saying not save your money, I'm saying when there's this energy of fear, when there's an energy of lack, if there's an energy of when I give, I'm afraid to give because I might not have any left for me. That dynamic right there is actually a place where we are denying the divinity within us. And all we have to do is recognize, I'm doing that, right? And so now when I walk into my closet, it's confronting. There's like a little sliver of clothes here, and they're color coordinated. It's very clean. And I walked in this morning, and my daughter says, if you want to forego Christmas this year, that's okay. And I'm like, what do you mean? She says, well, you don't have to buy me a gift, but I feel really uncomfortable with you only have that many clothes because we're used to your closet being teeming full. And what occurred to me this morning was, I have an infinite deep freezer. I don't need to surround myself with all this clutter to feel safe because I know that the keys to the kingdom are inside of me. I know that the kingdom of God is within me and it's infinite. I know that there is no limit to what I that I'm funded, that I'm always funded. I'm funded, I'm sourced, I'm blessed. And it all comes perfectly, and it comes in perfect time. So it stops being about my money. I stop thinking about my checking account as this is what I have. And I'm changing my thinking into, I'm in the divine flow of abundance. It comes, it goes. It's like the sea, it comes and goes, it ebbs, it flows. Sometimes I have a lot of money, sometimes I don't. I have a little bit of money, but I always have what I need. And so I stop being the owner of it, and I start being the steward of it. I start being someone who manages the resources that are actually God's resources. It's not about whether I get enough, or that I get, if I have enough, or if enough is coming. I can give up strategizing on, okay, this is what I have for this amount of time, and this will last me for this amount of time. I can be in the freedom of the flow. And here's the thing about being in the freedom of the flow. When we're talking about the Christmas season, or the holiday season, we give up the idea that when I give, that I'm giving you something that I'm separated from. I'm always connected with what I give. I'm always connected with the energy of what I'm putting over here. Always connected. And I can't be separated from it. So when I'm giving love and you don't receive it, I still am left with the love. Right? I have an elderly relative, and everyone in the family has decided that she's just, nobody give her gifts. Please, nobody give her gifts, because she will make my aunt take them back. And so, there is nothing you can give her that she won't have it taken back. And my aunt is like, please don't get her a shirt. Please don't give her pajamas. Please, no more slippers, right? So she's like, this is my aunt, just give her a check and put it in a card and mail it, right? Well, my grandma's 97, right? I want to give her something. But I remember what my grandma always said. She used to say, give me my flowers now. Don't bring them to my funeral. So what do I give her? Big bouquet of flowers. Christmas, birthdays, holidays, right? Loves them. You go into her room, she's in assisted living, and you will have to hear for about 20 minutes about how Tammy sent her this Christmas tree or this plant. And I sent her a Christmas tree last year. I went there in March, it was still there. The lights hanging from the trees and everything. Oh yeah, I still like this, right? Well, what was the dynamic of that? My intention was to show her the love, right? And when we give, sometimes people, we see ourselves giving or other people giving out of a need for acknowledgement, out of need of recognition. Sometimes people give to show off. I can afford this, so I can give the most expensive gift. What we're really giving is love. And what we're really receiving is that love. Similarly, on the flip side, sometimes people will give you something you don't want. If someone's giving you anger and you don't want it, you don't receive it. They're left with it. Someone's giving hatred. You don't want to receive it, they're left with it. They have to resolve that between them and their understanding of the divine. But as for me, I'm giving love. I'm giving peace. I'm giving harmony. I'm giving you a token of my high regard for you. And because there's no separation between me and you, everything I give you, I'm giving to myself. Everything I give, I receive. Amma says that most people are concerned with what they can get from the world, but it is what we are able to give others that determines the quality of our life. And so many times when we give, we are having to recognize that the gratitude for the gift isn't what's important. What's important is the energy in which we are giving it. And so what I have decided to do this year for Christmas gifts is I am bringing up, as I'm buying presents or creating presents for every person, I am bringing up that person in my heart. And I'm saying, how can I be of service to that person? How can I give my time, my talent, my treasure? What would bring joy to that person's life? And I bring them up, and then I imagine myself giving them that. And even though I am going to be giving them something tangibly, the tangible object is just a prop. The tangible object is just a prop. It's not about the tangible item. because it's my intention in giving love. It's my intention that you feel joy. It's my intention that you feel loved, that you know how special you are. And that's my intention in giving gifts. It's the same thing with time we spend together as family, the time we spend with our co-workers and our friends and our family and our loved ones. What is our intention in spending that time together? You know, sometimes they say, you've heard many times that if you think you're transformed, spend 2 weeks with your parents. You know, it's kind of like that. Sometimes if you need to, sometimes it's trying to be around our family or our friends or old friends. It may trigger something. Bring up the intention for that interaction. What is my intention in my interaction with the people that I'm going to a holiday party with? Because we are infinite creators. We are in the divine flow. There is no limit to what we can create. So if you're somebody who looked at a Norman Rockwell picture of somebody else's life and said, oh, I want that, then that's exactly what we are called to create. And it's a beautiful thing.